Hello and welcome to another live Q&A with me, Shakina. I'm here for the next 60 minutes to answer all of your OET questions. So, welcome to all of you joining us on YouTube, joining us on Facebook. These are the two channels that we're streaming from today live. And like I said before, I'm here on hand for the next 60 minutes to answer any questions that pop into your head about OAT or some burning questions that you've been meaning to ask. And no question is a silly question. We want to hear all of your questions, and I'm going to try my best to get through all of them as they come in. The format is pretty simple. If you've got a question that you'd like me to answer, you can type it into the chat. That is either YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're watching from. That question will come through to me, and I will do my best to answer all as many as I can in the next 60 minutes. So I can see that we've got some questions coming in already, which is great. And hello to everyone saying hi there in the chat. And I am going to begin with the first question, which is from Prashant. And Prashant joins us on YouTube. Prashant's question is about spelling mistakes in listening part A. Now, if you think about listening part A, it is you are making notes or you're filling in the notes of the healthcare professional that you see there in your question paper. You're filling them in with the gaps. And these are words that would usually come from the patient's mouth. So that's what you hear in the audio. If you think about your real life workplace, you would be expected to make notes accurately, and spelling does play a huge part of this. And so, what we do advise that you aim for accuracy in spelling. In listening part A, there is a little bit of flexibility more than in reading part A, but definitely our advice is, especially words that would be that are known to the general public, that's the lay public and healthcare professionals alike. Common words like that are expected to be spelled correctly. So aim for accuracy and definitely work on spelling if that's not a strong point for you. All right. I've got a question here from Meherin, who joins us on Facebook, and Meherin's asking about writing. Does it have a set format? So, does paragraph 1 should have a particular information? Should paragraph 2 have certain information, or should it be logically coherent? So, with OET writing, there is no template or there's no set format. You're absolutely right that it should be logically coherent. And the only way that you can make it so for your reader is if you, on test day, engage with the case notes in front of you, think about your reader and what's important for them to know to continue care, and organize your letter in that way. If you have a set idea about what your letter should look like before you go into the test room. So if you're following a template or a format, that's not going to work in every single circumstance, because each set of case notes is different. Each letter is different. And so you would need to really think about your patient and your reader, what information about your patient you need to communicate to your reader, and in what order. So the information that's most important for your reader to know should come right in front. It should be clear for the reader to locate, and easy for them to find. And so to do that, there is really no format. It's something that you would need to um, engage with the case notes on test day. So what I'm going to do is actually in the chat pop in our writing guide, which is a wonderful resource that will go through a lot more of what I've just explained. Um, and it takes you through each of the assessment criteria with lots of examples that will help you really understand what is required of you from in your writing task. So I'm going to um, pop the link to the writing page in the chat, and I would encourage you to go over there and go and download the writing guide. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page there, you will find the writing guide there. I've got a question here from Prosper. In OET writing, can we use a pencil only or pen can be used? It's entirely your choice in the writing test which you use. Use one that you're comfortable with, one that you've practiced with, and that you've practiced, making corrections with, so that you're not, at the last minute on test day, you want to make a correction, and it's not something you've practiced with pen or pencil, for example, then you lose time. So just make sure what you can use whatever you're comfortable with, but make sure you practice with that as well. All right, so I've got some questions here, a lot about writing coming in. So I'm going to answer one more about writing. Um, So I've got here a question from Esra on YouTube, and Esra is asking, do we mention the full name of the patient in the introduction or just the family name of an adult? So Esra, generally, you could mention just the family name with the title or the full name. Generally, it's standard in healthcare practice to mention the full name of the patient, um, in the introduction, but it's not, you don't need to worry too much if you've just mentioned the title and the last name. But yes, definitely standard practice to mention the full name in the introduction. I've got a question here from May, who joins us on Facebook. And similar questions coming in about reading part A. So if your question is about reading part A, this should help answer that. And May is asking, is it best to solve the 15th question last, or the last question? I guess that's what you're asking. Is it I guess this is about the order of the questions that you should, what order should you solve the questions in, if I've understood that correctly. So our advice is always that you begin with the first set of questions. So um, you begin with those are the matching questions. And now the reason for that is because of the way that the test is designed. The test is designed so that you get a broad view of the four texts that you're presented with, and then you go into the specific information that you're finding from each text. And you should be able to answer the first set of questions just by looking at the headings, the subheadings of the texts. You don't need to read each of the texts from beginning to end, line by line. That's not necessary at all to answer the first set of matching questions. All you need to do is read the headings, the subheadings, and that will give you a good idea of the four texts. So that's the idea behind the matching questions. And as you're doing this, your brain is going to start registering little details from those texts. So when you go into the next set of questions, which is either your gap fill or your sentence completion, you will already have a broad picture of the text, and your brain has already gathered some details from here and there. And so when you look at the questions, you could say, okay, I remember seeing this in this text, and then you could go back to that text more easily. So that's our advice. Give it a try. If you haven't, if your test is not too close by, if you've still got a little bit of time left to practice like this, do give it a try and see how you go. We generally find that helps work your way through the questions more efficiently. All right. Okay. I've got a lovely comment here from this candidate on YouTube, and they have cleared OET after 3 attempts with a B in all the modules. A huge congratulations, and thank you very much for sharing your success with us. Okay, I've got some questions here that I can see. All right. I've got a question here from Nida on YouTube, and Nida saying, "Why are reading and listening so difficult? There's so many distractors attempting to, give you. There's so many distractors, and you could go wrong with them. So how do you avoid making these mistakes?" So what I'm going to perhaps do is just answer the first part of your question about reading and listening. Um, that a lot of candidates feel it's a difficult part of the test. And then I'll talk about a little bit about how you can, get better at your strategy with answering multiple choice questions. So the reading and listening parts of the test, the reading and listening subtests are something that often what candidates do is to practice a lot of practice tests because they feel that doing that will help them get better at those subtests. When actually the way that you can improve is to do a lot of reading and listening outside of OET tasks. And as you do this, you would become more fluent both in your listening and your reading. And that would help you approach these tasks, with more confidence. They aren't more difficult than any of the other parts of the test, and all parts of the test are set at the same level of challenge. What this and the reason for this is that the reason why you can rest assured that all the level of challenge is set at the same level is because we have had to demonstrate to regulators who accept our results that we are a standardized test and that we've checked this. So it's not that the reading and listening are more difficult. It's just that perhaps you need to think about the way that you've been preparing for them and change that a little bit. So the second part of your question is about the strategy for avoiding distractors. One thing that you could try out for both parts B and part C of the reading test is to think about reading the question first, whether that's the complete question or just the question stem. Think about that and to read the text before you read the answer option. So read your question, read your text, and then think about what you feel the answer is based on the question and your reading of the text. Once you've done that, you should have a good, strong idea about what you feel the answer is, and then you can go and look at the answer options. And then that should give you more confidence in eliminating the distractors. It's also a good idea to find evidence for why something is right, but also for why something is wrong. So there's distractors there that you're not sure about. Um, Find out evidence from the text about why that is wrong. It could be mentioned in the text, but it's not. It's not logically. It's not the answer to the question there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to post in the chat um, our link, our two links to week 2 week long sessions that we had last year. That we had reading week and we had listening week, and these sessions really go through in detail each part of the test, but also how you can improve generally. And I'm going to encourage you to go to that to these playlists and watch these videos along with the activities that are there, and that will really give you a good idea of how you can improve. All right. I've got a question. Um, okay, I've got a question here from Calpo on Facebook. Calpo's asking, they have a question about the writing subtest. Is it necessary to include the dosage of the medicine? And if yes, does OET deduct points if we forget to use this detail, include this detail? So, Calpo, it's not necessary to include the dosage of medicine. It might not even be necessary to include the medication at all. Now, how you decide whether to include medication or to include medication and dosage is really depends on the reader that you're writing to. So if your reader needs to know the medication name and the dosage, because they are going to perform some sort of aspect of care that would involve medication that would necessitate them having that knowledge, then yes, you need to include that. But if it has nothing to do with what the reader is going to do to the patient to continue care for the patient, then you don't need to include the dosage. So it really depends. Think about the task when you have the writing task there. Think about the purpose you are writing to the reader for. That's clear in official OET tasks. Think about the purpose, the reader, why you're writing to them, what they need to do to that patient, to continue care for that patient, and then that will help you decide whether you should include medication or if you should include a medication and dosage. Right. Okay, I've got a question from Eram. What about articles A and the in listening part A? Does it affect the numbers? So if you go to our official sample tests on our website, which I'm going to just share the link to the listening sample tests, and have a look at the answer keys, you will see that articles are generally in brackets. They're given in brackets there, and this means they're optional. Anything in brackets in the answer keys is optional, and articles are generally optional. Sometimes they may even form part of the notes that come before the blank, and that's how you would get clues about what kind of word it is. So they are optional. All right. Okay, I've got a question here from George on YouTube, and George is asking, what about corrections of mistakes in writing? How do you do it, and can it affect the grade? So, George, you can correct mistakes if you've made them, and you feel that you need to correct a word, um, or a phrase. You can go ahead and do that. How you do it is really up to you. You can, for example, you might be comfortable just drawing a line across the wrong word and writing the correct word on top. You might feel more comfortable erasing the word and then rewriting the correct word there. It's really up to you. But you need to remember to do it in a way that is clear for the assessor, so is legible, is clear. The assessor reading your writing, your letter, isn't confused about what word you wanted to use there. And as long as that's clear, it should not affect your grades. If it becomes unclear at any point, and there's confusion there, then it could have an impact. But if it's clear, you don't need to worry at all. Okay. I've got a question here from Sanya. How to start a home visit role play. Now, Sanya, when you look at a speaking role card, you will see that there is background information. The background information in the role card will tell you the setting. So, for example, a home visit, and it will also tell you the context, so a little bit of information about the patient. This should help you decide how you start the role play. There's no one single way to start a home visit role play. For example, each card is different, and you need to read the background information to understand. So, for example, if you are, say, a nurse making a home visit to a patient for the first time, you would obviously start by introducing yourself to the patient, your role there, what you've come to do, and you could also confirm, for example, the patient's name. If you're a nurse who's going to a patient, you regularly visit this patient at home, then introductions aren't necessary. So it would really depend on the background information, and I am going to recommend a blog article that we have, which is about how to start the role play. Um, and now this blog article is in our language handbook, which I'm just going to share share screen to, and I'm just going to show you a little bit about the language handbook. So if you can see here, you've got the language handbook, and it's got a lot of blog articles on different topics. And the one that I shared in the chat is in the speaking section. So if you go to speaking, you've got the different subtests here. You've got grammar, you've got language test tips, and so on. If you go to the speaking section, you can find that blog article here. I've shared the link, of course, in the chat, but there's a lot of commonly asked questions that you might have that you can find in the language handbook. And I will share a link to the language handbook in the chat as well. Great. I'm just looking for some new questions, and welcome if you've just joined us. Please, feel free to keep putting in your questions in the chat. And I'm going to keep looking for some newer questions. All right. Um, okay. Um, Right. So I've got a question here from Isra on YouTube, and Isra's talking about part A questions. They're paraphrased, and you need to read between the lines. So Isra, just I'm not sure if you're talking about reading part A or if you're talking about listening part A. But in neither of those do you need to paraphrase the questions or the answers. What you need to do in reading part A is to find the answer, the specific answer, and copy the answer exactly as it is from the text onto your question paper, your sheet there. You don't need to change it in any way. You don't need to rewrite it. It needs to be copied exactly as it is. Um, and similarly, for listening, um, you need to write exactly what you hear in the audio. You don't need to change the word in any way at all. So no, you don't need to read between the lines or paraphrase in part A's of both listening and reading. All right. So I've got All right. I've got a question here from Jahangir, and Jahangir is asking about practice material. So, saying that there's a wide variety of materials on different platforms, it can be confusing and distracting. And can you suggest some sources for quality materials? Absolutely, Jahangir. And I think you made a really important point about the different material floating out there. A lot of material that you find on social media that you can download on different groups, chat groups, um, that you can download is often unofficial and of poor quality. And the danger with using this material is that you actually practice the wrong skills, you practice the wrong kinds of things. It gives you, these materials give you a very different or inaccurate view of the test. And so when you come into, when you come on test day, you can be completely thrown off because the materials that you've been practicing with have actually misled you about the test. So it's really important to use official OET material. Um, you can find a lot of that on our website, oet.com. But I'm also going to be sharing at right now in the chat something called our study guide. Now, our study guide actually is sort of a one-stop shop for all the subtests and all the best preparation advice on all the subtests. So what I would encourage you to do is to download our study guide. I'm just popping that in the chat. It's something that you can download and save. It has a lot of information, also has lots of links to where you can, watch videos, you can read more information, you can even get suggestions for improving your reading outside of OET. All of that great stuff is in the study guide. So I'd encourage you to download that first. That's a good starting point. And then our sample tests on our website, oet.com, are a great source as well. There are 5 official sample tests. And then if you want to go further, you can also purchase additional material from the OET store. And I will also just pop that link to the store in the chat in case you are interested in purchasing some more additional practice material. Um, okay, I've got a question here from G on Facebook, and he's asking about reading part A. How can we write the drug dose? So, for example, if the question says, what's the minimum dose? Um, so, what should you write? So, if your question, so it's important to read the question carefully. All right. An official OET question will be very clear about what you need to write. So I think you're suggesting that the question that you're referring to has two things it's asking the minimum and approximate dose, but this will not be something that you find in an official OET task. If you look at our reading sample tests on our website, you will see that the questions are very specific. So, for example, asking about a minimum dose that is specific. If the minimum dose so what you need to do is read the question carefully and go to the part of the text where you have the information there. If it's a range, so if if it says um, if it's a range, so if it starts from 100 mg and goes up to 500, so the minimum dose would say be 100. You need to write just that, just the minimum. You don't need to write the range. You don't need to write the higher value. You need to write the minimum. So read the question carefully, and also so read the question carefully and answer that question. We have excellent examples on our website. So I'm going to just pop in the chat a wonderful video that will help you answer this very question in a lot more detail. And the video is how to succeed in reading part A. There's really good examples there, and I would encourage you to watch this video after the session and really um, have a look at our sample tests as well, our official sample tests. Those will be really clear for you. All right. Um, I've got another question here from Ranju about speaking. And Ranju's asking, in speaking, should we avoid introducing ourselves if the patient is known to us? So, yes, Ranju, think about the situation as you would in real life. Okay. So, if you have met a patient that is your regular patient, you've seen before, maybe a couple of times, you wouldn't introduce yourself again. So, think about the role play in very much the same way. If you've met the patient before, and like I said, this is clear from the background information in official OET tasks. The background information will clearly give you an idea, a sense of whether you've seen the patient before, if it's meeting them for the first time. So if you've met them before, you don't need to introduce yourself. All right, I'm just moving through. Okay, I've got a question here from Tandy. The test is tomorrow. So do you have any tips? So Tandy, I'm not sure which part of the world you're in at the moment, but depending on the time zone, it could be that you've actually got your test coming up tomorrow morning, or it's the afternoon for you, or morning, and you've got it coming up. So you have a little bit more time. I would suggest that at this point, the best tip that I can offer you is to rest well before test day, to prepare all of your things that you'll need for your test. That is, things like your ID, have your bag packed, make sure that you've planned out your travel to get to the venue in time, and you're making sure that you're able to eat well before you go in for the test. So I would say that's the best advice. It's maybe, you could spend a few minutes just reviewing a few things, but the main thing is to be well rested and as comfortable as possible for tomorrow, prepared for all of the sort of things that I talked about, like getting ready, your bag ready, planning your journey, and that kind of thing, so that you arrive there without any worries, any frustrations, and you're in the right mindset to take the test. I hope you have a good test day experience. All right. I've got a question here from Nana. And Nana's asking, is 1 month enough to prepare for the test? So, Nana, this would actually depend um, on maybe two things. One is what's your current level of English, and the second thing is how much time you have to devote to preparation. So, 1 month could be enough if you're test ready. That means your English is at the level where you can be successful in achieving the grade that you need. If your English is, if your level is lower and you still need to work a lot on your English skills and building up your language, then 1 month is, it may not be enough and you would need longer. So the current level of English, and the second thing is how much time you have to devote to study. So if you are busy, if you're working, you've got a full-time job, you've got family responsibilities, obviously this means that you already have a lot on your plate, and the amount of time you have to devote to study would depend a lot on your other responsibilities. So work out how much time you have every day that you can devote realistically, making sure that you keep enough time, like I said, for all of your other responsibilities, but also for rest. Um, Come up with a realistic, number of hours per day, per week, and that will help you know how much time you can devote to your study. So if your low English is at a lower level and you have less time every day to study, you can only devote a little time, then obviously it would take you longer to be to work up your English skills and prepare for the test. If your English is really good, and already at that test ready level, and you've got about a month, then of course, you've got lots of time, then of course that 1 month could be enough. But it really depends. So I would encourage you to find out your current level of English, work out how much time you have, make sort of a preparation plan, a preparation uh, calendar, and work out how long you're going to be ready in, so that you can take the test when you're ready, and you have a greater chance of being successful. Right. All right. So I have got a question here from Adwin, and Adwin's had some difficulties with booking the test. Um, and I can read the rest of your question. Adwin, I think this is something that our dedicated customer service team can help you with. And I would encourage you to go to our website, where you would see, on the website, you'll see right at the bottom of the page, on the right bottom, a blue button, which is Chat with an Expert button. And that is a way that you can get in touch with our customers service team directly, and they will be able to help you out with this question. Okay. I it's scrolling down for um, um, some more new questions. I can see some questions about listening, and I am going to pull up one about listening part A. All right. So Munita's asking how can one improve in listening part A? And what I'm going to do is just share some tips on listening part A. Um, Listening part A can seem a little bit challenging sometimes because you're listening to the audio and obviously trying to fill in the gaps. But there is a lot that you can do in your reading time. So the 30 seconds that you have before each listening A audio plays to help you really get to help you really prepare for your listening. So the first thing is to keep is the use the headings to keep your place. So the headings will give you the topics that were going to be discussed in the conversation, and they're also going to give you an idea of the flow of the conversation. That will help your brain prepare to listen. There's also untested or notes that are complete notes that will again help you to keep your place as the audio progresses. Um, as you listen, so in your reading time, actually, not as you listen, but in your reading time, you're going to one thing that you can do is to anticipate the answer from the notes around the gap. And what that means is to really think about what information goes there. So, for example, is it the name of a medicine that's likely going to be in that gap? Is it a symptom that the patient has been experiencing that's probably going to be in the gap? So, anticipate that in your reading time. And again, the complete notes as well as the notes around the gap will help you do this. And then the final tip is that you only need to write one answer. The answer is will be clear, and you need to write only what you hear. So these are some tips to help you do well in listening part A. And as I said, it's a lot about how you can use your reading time more effectively. Right. Um, so I've got some more questions. And I've got a question here from Nilija. And Nilija is asking, why can't OET share our results because we can't find the mistakes that you made in the test? So, Nilija, the way that OET works is that you have your letter grade score, your letter grade in your mark sheet, as well as your numerical score. And the reason one of the benefits of the numerical score is that it will tell you how far you are from the grade, the next grade that you want to achieve. And so that will give you a good idea of really where how far you are or what you need to you know what how much work is required. What we would recommend is to work with a teacher to help you understand where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are. So obviously you would have a very already probably have a good idea of these. If you've taken a test, it's a good idea to reflect on the test that you've just taken. So it might be a bit stressful, or you might feel worried, but really, if you find some time to reflect on each part, what you did, how you did, where you did well, and where you didn't do so well, and discuss that with the teacher, they should really be able to help guide you about how you can improve on your um, s- on your weaknesses. And what I'm going to suggest is I'm going to pop into the chat the link to our preparation providers. Now, when I say teachers, I mean, um, I can say with confidence that our preparation providers that you will find on this page are absolutely trained, and they have a good knowledge of um, teaching, because they have teaching qualifications, and they have been trained and finished the training under OET to be able to guide you well. So what I'm going to do is just quickly also share with you where how you can find a preparation provider near you. So if you go to this page, which is our preparation provider page, you will be able to filter out what you're looking for. So I would go just by country. And so, for example, if you are in India, I'm going to pick India because that's where I am. So if you go to India, you will see all of the preparation providers that are endorsed by us, our partners, here on the website. And you can see there's 3 pages of them, so there's plenty of them, and you can find one near you. So you would see the city, this little location sign would give you the city. You can visit their website, you can call them on a number, and it would also tell you whether the uh, preparation they offer is online or in a face-to-face classroom, both. Sometimes there's a variety of different ways that they can help you. So I would encourage you to really go on our website and have a look at all of these providers. Find one near you, so that you can get the best advice on your how to improve on your um, weaknesses. Right. Um, I've got some more questions coming in, and we're getting into the last sort of 10 minutes of our Q&A today. But do pop in your questions into chat. All right. I've got a question here from Dr. Mithun Ghosh on Facebook, and they're asking about listening and how to achieve a B in listening. And I think, like I said earlier, a lot of practice that a lot of our candidates do is practice of sample tests and mock tests, which is great, it's important. But what often happens is that if you follow that method of study, which is to do practice tests over and over and over again, you're actually not really improving your listening skill. What you're doing is you're becoming really good at answering the questions, you're becoming really good with the format of the test, but you're not improving your listening skills. So if you actually want to improve your listening skills, um, we would encourage you to go outside of the OET test, practice, and to do listening generally. So, one of the ways that you can do this is to um, listen to a lot more English. Maybe it could be podcasts, it could be movies, it could be anything that you like, especially also if there's a medical uh, topic that you're interested in, that you'd like to learn more about. Think about something like that. And there's plenty of health podcasts, different talks, presentations. There's TV shows that would be great to watch on medical dramas that would improve your listening skills. And that is a really good way. So I'm going to actually pop into the chat um, our listening guide. So we have a complete guide to listening, which is part A, part B, and um, part C. So we have each part of the test, each part of the listening test, you have the complete guide, and there's lots of suggestions about how you can, listen outside of OET practice tests in that guide. So do check that out, and there'll be plenty more tips there. Right. Okay. I've got a question here from Asher about OET score. Is that been decreased for Ireland and New Zealand? So, Asher, this is a question that we would recommend that you check with our provider, with your regulator, and uh, this is something that um, they're more aware, that they decide, and that you can find on their website, and the information that they have there. So I'm going to post in the chat a page to our website that lists all of the regulators, including the regulators in New Zealand and Ireland, and lists all of them and their websites. So once you visit this page, you can find the list, click on the one that you would like to know the requirements for. That the link on our page will take you to their website, where then you can check what you are looking for. All right. Okay, I've got a question from Hifsa. So, what's the score we should get during practice in reading and listening? So, Hifsa, our recommendation is that when you're practicing with official OET tasks, you should aim to get between 30 to 32 in your practice. So, that is a good indicator of whether you're on the right track towards getting that grade B. Now, remember that this applies, this, 30, 31, 32 applies to only if you're practicing with official tasks, and it's always a good idea to aim for higher. So um, for as aim for as high as possible, so that you can really feel confident that you're on the right track. Okay, so I've got a question here, um, from Jilcy. Jilcy is saying, for reading part A, is there a time adjustment? So will there be, perhaps Jilcy is suggesting that there should be more time given for reading part A. So it's important, it's definitely stressful, and I'm sure there's a lot of anxiety with answering 20 questions in 15 minutes, but it's very possible to do that. And as I said earlier in the session, if you work your way through the questions, starting with the beginning, the first set, you should be able to do that. And the reason why there is that timed pressure in reading part A is not because we want to make it harder for you, but actually because that's the way that you would need to read in your workplace. So when you reach, your workplace, and you're you're on the ward, it's a busy day, and you need to look up something very quickly, um, and a patient is in front of you, you would need to be very quick with your reading. You'd need to be efficient and to be able to find the information that you need from what's in front of you. So that's the reason why there is that timed pressure. And it actually sort of simulates that real life environment that you're faced with when you go into the workplace. So it's something that's it's not there to make it harder. It's just because that's the way you'd need to read in real life. All right, Ruwani, how is asking, how can we get OET materials? What's the website? So Ruwani, I've shared earlier quite a few links to different pages on our website. But what I'm going to share again is the Learn page of our website, where you would find a lot of materials. Once you visit that page, scroll through it, look at the different subtests, and you'll find a lot of material, free material there. You can also find material on our store, OET store, which is you can see from our website, oet.com. There's plenty of material there. And also do check out the link to the study guide that I shared a little earlier. Okay. Okay. I've got a question here from Belinda. Belinda's asking, in listening, sometimes there are two answers. She writes one, but the answers are two. So, Belinda, I would say that you would need to check if the material that you're using is official. When you're practicing with official material, it's very clear the answer that you need to write, and it's usually a single word that you need to write usually. So I would say check the material that you're using. I'm going to share again in the chat links to the sample tests, the listening sample tests on our website. Have a look at those and the answer keys there. And that should give you a good idea of the kinds of answers that you're expected to write. All right, so I've come into the final minute or so of our session today. All of those questions are great, but if we haven't answered your question today, remember that you can definitely continue to contact us on Facebook through our messenger. Pop in your question there and we will get back to you. All right, so I'm going to just quickly pick out the last question. I've got a question here from Reba about about reading A again for questions. So your gap fill and your short answer questions. How do we write the answers, in small letters or in capital letters? Yes, so how do you write the answers? Reba, it really doesn't matter. It needs to be legible. And we would always recommend that you copy the answer exactly as it is from your question, from your text into your answer there, into your book answer booklet. If you copy it exactly the way it is, you don't need to worry at all. And capitalization doesn't really matter. Okay, so with that, I have come to the end of the session. And like I said, you can continue to get in touch with us on Facebook, post in your questions there. We'll be more than happy to answer them. If it's a question about test bookings, anything of that sort, our wonderful customer service team is there. If you go to our website and chat with an expert button, click that and you'll be able to get in touch with them. And our next live Q&A is going to be hosted by my colleague Rebecca, and that's coming up quite soon on the 4th of March, which is in the American time zone. That's 3 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 8 p.m. Brazilian time. So that's if you live in that part of the world. If you live, and that's sort of in Australian time, that's 10 a.m. Or if you're in the Philippines, that's 7 a.m. So that's the next Q&A live. That's going to be hosted by my colleague Rebecca. Like I said, do keep posting in your questions, and until next time, bye-bye.